At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Daniel Eichinger, Director of the Michigan Department of Natural Resources. Dan was appointed on December 27, 2018, by Governor Gretchen Whitmer to serve in her cabinet as the Director of the Department of Natural Resources. At age 37, he became the youngest person appointed to this position in the 100-year history of the DNR. Under his leadership, the DNR has moved swiftly to unlock the potential of 4.5 million acres of state-managed public lands to store and sequester carbon and to reorient long-term natural resource planning to focus on climate resiliency. I would draw your attention to an expanded bio that we have in the agenda for more information on the director and his many accomplishments, but at this time, I would like to welcome to the lectern. Director. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm so pleased to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to have a little bit of agenda time from all of you today. I hate to be the guy who follows the Great Lakes Boat Building School, because that was a hell of a presentation that they gave and really cool stuff that they're working on. I want to take just a minute and acknowledge a couple of folks that we've got in the room with us today. You're going to see and hear a little bit more from him, I think, later, but we have Natural Resources Commissioner Dave Nyberg, who's with us today, so thanks for being here, Dave. We've got UP Field Deputy Director Stacy Hoy is in the room with us today. We have former Natural Resources Commissioner and current Travel Commissioner John Madigan in the back of the room, so it's good to see you, John. And we have Donna LaCourte from the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, who's been a great partner for us on a lot of our forest bioeconomy and some of the innovative things that we're trying to do with the forest products and timber development space that we're very active in. So I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes talking about maybe a little bit of our experience over the last couple of years, some of the things that we've witnessed and how we're going to respond to those things going forward. And I think the words that Brian Calley shared with us this morning are very important, that everyone's looking for a return to normal. And a lot of, I think, what we're trying to do is figure out how we reset and reestablish what the baseline is. And that's part of what I want to talk about today. Over the last couple of years through the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw, and I think all of you who are residents of the Upper Peninsula probably felt this more than maybe anyone else in the state of Michigan, that folks were very hungry to get outdoors. Connecting with nature, finding places where people could play, where they could safely gather with their family and friends, was extremely important to people in the state of Michigan over the last couple of years. In our parks system, we have 103 park and recreation areas all across the state of Michigan. We saw a 30% increase in visitation into our state parks. So on a normal year, if we can use that term anymore, let's maybe retire what normal is, but in a pre-pandemic year, we would welcome about 27 million people through the front door at one of our state parks and recreation areas, which I'm not the best at math, but that's a lot of people. During the pandemic years, 2020 and 2021, the season that we just wrapped up, we welcomed 35 and 36 million people through the front gate. So about a 30% increase in visitation, a 30% increase in participation in the outdoors. And parks are an easy thing for us to categorize, but across recreational use, we saw that same level of interest and engagement. Our fishing licenses and interest in fishing increased significantly. Hunting licenses, which have been in this long decline for about the last 20 or 25 years, we saw not like a return to the levels that we had in the 1990s, but we saw that trend line start to reestablish itself. Trail uses on both our non-motorized and our motorized trails have also gone kind of bananas. We've got people who are filling parking lots like I saw yesterday when I was driving through, wanting to get out on our snowmobile trail system, our ORV and ATV trail system, our non-motorized pathways, all across category. We're seeing folks that are returning to the outdoors, falling in love with nature all over again. And in the Department of Natural Resources, we think about things in terms of seasons, whether it's deer season or it's duck season or it's trout season. And this time of year, February, is budget season in the state of Michigan and for the Department of Natural Resources. And so we think about a budget as everyone else does. You put your money where your mouth is and you fund things that are your priorities. And there are, I think, some important priorities that we're in a position now today to be able to help reset what our baseline is going to be going forward for how we provide outdoor recreation and natural resources conservation services to the people and the citizens of the state of Michigan. So last summer, I had the privilege of joining Governor Gretchen Whitmer at State Park over in St. Ignace, where she announced her intention to use $250 million of American Rescue Plan money to resolve a $250 million infrastructure backlog that we've had in the Michigan State Park system. And that backlog has accrued over time. It's not the fault of anyone in particular, but as I mentioned, it's a big system and we have a lot of visitors there. And the useful life of that system has gotten taxed significantly over the last couple of years in particular. And I think about it this way when I talk to folks, because that's a lot of money. $250 million is a lot of money to spend in our state parks. But I think about it this way. So if we've got about 36 million people who are visiting our state parks and we've got 365 days in a year, if we evenly allocated that out over every single year, we have about 100,000 people in our state parks on any given day, which is roughly the size of the population of the city of Kalamazoo. And when you're running a small to mid-sized city like the city of Kalamazoo, you've got all the kinds of challenges and problems and things that you have to think about when you're a municipal leader. You've got to think about things like the condition of your roads and your bridges and your culverts. You have to provide clean drinking water. You have to deal with solid waste. You have to deal with trash removal. You have to deal with public safety issues. You have to deal with hard infrastructure like buildings and the condition that those buildings are in. And as I said, over a number of decades, we've just never been in the position to really kind of stay on top of that wheel. And so our experience with the pandemic has really underscored a need for us to prioritize investment, not so much in building out, but building back in, and building that system back up from the inside out, not thinking so much about expanding our footprint of state parks, but really prioritizing on fixing and maintaining and keeping in good working order and condition the state parks that we already have, the facilities and infrastructure that we already have. So we're very excited about the governor's announcement to do that for state parks, but I was also excited in July when we had the opportunity to announce that the governor intends to use another $150 million of American Rescue Plan funds to be able to do exactly the same kinds of things that I just talked about in our state park system for our local parks as well. We didn't just experience an increase in visitation to state parks. Our partners across the park and recreation matrix experienced that same increase as well. And the same kinds of needs that exist within our system exist within the systems of your county parks, your city parks, township parks, and other municipal entities that manage and maintain recreation infrastructure. So we're intending to make a $400 million commitment and reinvestment back into the kinds of places that people have relied on and depended on over the last couple of years. Building on that same theme, the governor's budget presentation that was made last week, I think, or the week before, there are some significant investments in that same fashion of building from within, building from the inside out, fixing things that have long been legacy problems and legacy challenges for us so that we're creating durability and resiliency across our system. And I'm a passionate fisherman, and one of the passion projects that I've had when I got here is the need for us to reinvest and significantly reinvest back into our fish hatchery infrastructure that we have in the state of Michigan. We have 6 state fish hatcheries that we operate and maintain. We raise and stock over 22 million fish every single year. That's a lot of little critters for us to take care of, and that's across the spectrum. So we're talking cool water fish like walleye and muskie, our cold water fish species like brook trout and brown trout, our iconic salmon fishery in the Great Lakes with our Chinook and coho program. All of those are generated from our state fish hatcheries, and those state fish hatcheries are a little bit long in the tooth, and we haven't been able to take care of them in the way that we need to. So the governor's proposed that we're going to spend $30 million make a one-time investment in our state fish hatchery infrastructure to do things like improve our energy efficiency at our state fish hatcheries. 15% of all the energy that's consumed in the Department of Natural Resources is attributed to those 6 facilities. And we have some challenges there because the fish hatcheries run on kind of 2 primary media. You need water and you need electricity. We need water, obviously, because fish live in water and we grow fish in water, and you need to condition and treat that water to keep it at the right temperature, to keep it oxygenated at the kinds of levels that those fish like. But you also got to move a lot of water around, and that means we're running big pumps and we're doing a lot of things with electricity to condition that water. And so What we found is the technology that we developed in the 1940s in some cases, 50s and 60s in our state fish hatcheries, we've not been able to stay contemporary with keeping those facilities in a modern condition. And so when we have a pump failure or we have a power outage, we don't have, our backup capability is very poor, and it creates a lot of risk for us. Those 22 million fish can't live for long in water that is not conditioned or treated by our hatchery staff. So there's a critical need for us to make investments there. We also need to make some investments in our biosecurity at our fish hatcheries because we raise a lot of fish. We are much more sensitive, I think, these days to understanding the challenges of fish and wildlife health and fish and wildlife disease and the likelihood that we could be introducing fish disease to different species that, you know, there might be a walleye disease that they're immune to, but they carry it and can introduce it to our salmon. So we need to make sure that we're doing our job and fulfilling our responsibilities of prioritizing investment back into biosecurity at our fish hatcheries as well. Well, talk about parks again for just a second, and again, this plays off a theme that we heard Lieutenant Governor Calley talk about this morning. But we're a big employer. In our state park system, we talked about a 30% increase in visitation to our state parks, and we had about 30% of our seasonal and short-term worker positions in that same system went unfilled for us last year. The same kinds of workforce challenges that everyone in the business community is experiencing, we certainly experience those as well. In a lot of ways, there are big portions of the Department of Natural Resources that are in the hospitality business, and again, those same kinds of macroeconomic challenges in the wage and the labor force. We felt those and experienced those in our department as well. And so it's created some real challenge for us. We've had to prioritize really only doing things that are customer facing and customer service oriented because we had far fewer people to help work in our parks than what we have in typical years. So one of the investments that we're looking to make in the budget this year is to make our starting pay rates a little bit more competitive and a little bit more on market than where they've been before. I live in Isabella County. I've told this story a million times, but if you drive down Mission Street in Mount Pleasant, downtown Mount Pleasant, and you drive by the Subway, and Subway was going to pay someone 16 bucks an hour to make sandwiches in the air conditioning in the summertime. It's a great job. I know when I was washing dishes in my first job at the James Street Inn in Holland, Michigan, I wasn't making anywhere close to 16 bucks an hour. But if you look at what I was going to be paying someone, same kind of workforce, same kind of job, we're competing for the same kinds of workers. I'm going to pay somebody $11.50 to scrub toilets and pull trash in my state parks. We're not able to be competitive in a wage space. We're not able to compete adequately for labor. And so that's a problem and a challenge for us when we have, especially in some of the rural northern parts of the state, we're all competing for the same workforce. And it became a real challenge for us. So one of the investments that we're making is to be much more competitive in our seasonal and short-term worker pay rates. One of the last projects, I'm just going to check my time here because I'm getting close. All right, that's good. One of the projects that I'm really excited about, we've had some conversations even today with some of our friends and partners at Northern Michigan University. But one of the really innovative things that we're trying to do in the agency is to think differently about how we can better and more effectively utilize the timber resources that we have here in the state of Michigan. Our forest products industry is a $20 billion industry. There is no region of the state where that is more important than right here in the Upper Peninsula. And making sure that we are reinvesting back into the vitality of that market is of primary concern and primary importance to us in the Department of Natural Resources. And one of the ways that we're looking to do that is to establish mass timber as a building and a construction material that can be used in large-scale industrial applications. I went to Michigan State University. If anybody's had a chance to go down to MSU, there's a really cool new STEM facility that was built just in the shadow of Spartan Stadium, the hallowed grounds of Spartan Stadium. And it was built with mass timber. And it helps to demonstrate that this is a technology that is scalable, that's buildable, and we can source that material right here in the state of Michigan and create yet another outlet for our timber products that we develop right here. So a few years ago, we worked with the legislature and we won a capital outlay appropriation to build a new customer service center over in Luce County, over in Newberry. It was the last facility that we had under lease, so we're going to save ourselves about $65,000 a year in lease payments. But we're going to build that facility out of mass timber in a way to help showcase and demonstrate that's technology that we can build, that we can utilize here right in the state of Michigan and start to build and create an industry and establish market demand, another market outlet and more market demand for our timber products that are built right here, that are innovated right here in the state of Michigan. There are very, very few states across the country that are thinking about these kinds of partnerships between state government and the timber industry, the construction industry, the architecture industry, and the engineering industry, to bring all of those things into alignment so that we can become a market leader, not just in the Midwest, not just in the United States, but across the country for mass timber technology. So I'm going to stop there, hopefully get us back on track for agenda a little bit, but I so appreciate the opportunity to talk about just a few of the priorities that we're working on in the Department of Natural Resources, and I'll be floating around Marquette for the next couple of days, so hopefully I'll see you all very soon at one of those. So thanks very much again, I appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. We know we're running a little bit behind, but we felt that there was a lot of valuable things that came to us that we want to try to get out in front of you, including having Dan speak to you in regard to some of the investment that the DNR is making across the state, but also the UP.